Hi, I'm Devorah Schoenfeld. I teach Judaism in a theology department at Loyola University Chicago, a Jesuit Catholic university. My students are almost all non-Jewish, mostly Christian, largely Catholic. So I think a lot about teaching Torah to non-Jews and why it matters. For me, abundance means the very large number of people we can reach and connect with once we realize that there is interest in the work we do outside of the Jewish community. My experience has been that Christians want to learn about Judaism. Jesus was Jewish. The Hebrew Bible, more or less, is part of the Christian Bible. The New Testament, the other part of the Christian Bible, was written mostly by Jews, and most of its characters are Jews. So Judaism matters to them, and that means that Torah matters to them. But from a Jewish perspective, from a Torah perspective, what does it mean for me to teach Torah to Christians? My background is in Parshanut, biblical interpretation, so that is where I look for models and for inspiration. I think about the covenant that God made with the entire world through Noah. I think about Eov, Job, the most righteous person who ever lived, the example of righteousness, who doesn't seem to necessarily be Jewish. I think about Esther, affirming and explaining her Jewishness to a non-Jewish king in a way that saves everyone. And I think about Avraham, father of many nations, whose descendants became as numerous as the stars of the heaven and the sands of the sea. One commentary on the Avraham story that I find particularly powerful is that of Radak, David Kimchi, 12th century Jewish Bible commentator living in Provence. He wrote on the Akedah that you should not think that when it says that God nisa Avraham, normally translated God tested Avraham, we shouldn't really think of this as a test for God to figure out whether Avraham would pass or fail. Most commentators agree with this. Midrash Rabbah, for example, says that we should see nisa as not as from nisayon, test, but from nes, banner. That God was raising Avraham as a banner to all the nations. Similarly, Rashi says that the purpose of this test was to show Avraham's greatness to Satan and to the nations of the world. Radak has a problem with that. He says, how could this show Avraham's greatness to anyone if no one was there? It was only Avraham and Yitzchak on the mountain. So he says, it happened so that it could be written about in the Torah and so that everyone could read it. So as he writes, Va'emet, כי הניסיון הזה להראות לבני העולם אהבת אברהם השלמה. The truth is that this test was to show the people of the world Avraham's perfect love. ולא נעשה לאותם הדורות, אלא לדורות הבאים, המאמינים בתורה שכתב משה רבנו מפי האל ובספריה. It was not done for that generation, but rather for subsequent generations who believe in the Torah that Moshe wrote from God and in its stories. Shi'ru ad hechan higia ahavat Avraham la'el, so that they will see how great was Avraham's love for God. וילמדו ממנה להבה את השם בכל לבבם ובכל נפשם. And they will learn from this story to love God with all their hearts and with all their souls. ובאמת, קודם שנכתבה התורה וסיפוריה, היה הדבר הגדול הזה מסור לזרע אברהם, יצחק ויעקב. And the truth is, before the stories of the Torah were written down, this great thing was passed down to the descendants of Avraham, to Yitzchak and to Yaakov. Ki Yitzchak masar liYaakov v'Yaakov lebanav. Because Yitzchak gave it over to his son Jacob, and Jacob gave it to his sons. V'achar shenichtava haTorah livnei Yaakov, nitparsem hadovar ba'olam. And after the Torah was written, the thing became public in the world. Yesh maminim, v'yesh she'enam maminim. There were those who believed it, and there were those who didn't believe it. V'hayom, kama shanim mayom shebatla avodat hatzlamim va'elelim. And today, sometime after the worship of idols has ceased from the world. Ma'aminim rov ha'olam b'torat Moshe Rabbeinu u'b'sipureha. Most of the world believes in the Torah of Moshe and in its stories. Ela shecholkim al hamitzvot. Rather, they disagree about the mitzvot. She'omrim ki derech mashal ne'emru. That they say that the mitzvot were given as a mashal, as a parable. Uve'emin rov b'nei ha'olam hasipur hagadol hazeh hu edut gdola al Avraham Avinu. And the faith of most of the world in this great story is great testimony about Avraham. Shaya ohev ha'el ahava shlema v'tama, that he loved God with perfect and simple love. V'ra'ui la'adam lilmod himenu derech ahavato. And every person should learn from it the way to love God. There's some wonderful things here. When David Kimchi writes, most of the world believes in the Torah, he's writing in a context in 12th century Provence in which most of the people that he was aware of were Christians. So he says that Christians also see Avraham as a teacher of faith and learn from Avraham to love God. Not only that, but to him, God's purpose in the Akedah was not just for Jews to learn from Avraham, but also for the rest of the world to learn from Avraham. The purpose of the Akedah was so that it would be written about in the Torah for Jews to read and for Christians to read. He goes on to say that Jews and Christians read the Bible in kind of similar ways. He says, well, there's a difference, that Christians see the mitzvot as a parable. But that seems like a sort of difference that reasonable people could have. It's a difference in hermeneutics. It's a difference in how you read a text. But he says the story of Abraham, this we have in common. And from the story of Abraham, we can all learn to love God. We see in this interpretation two different kinds of abundance. The first is Avraham's abundant and overwhelming love for God, his ahava shlema. The second is the abundance of people who learn from Avraham's example of faith and of love. The Jewish world can sometimes feel very small. We all know each other. The Orthodox world can feel like a small part of the Jewish world, and the modern Orthodox world an even smaller part of that. And sometimes that's great. We're all friends. But sometimes it feels like, look, how many people really care about what I do? But the answer from this passage is actually lots of people care about what we do. Because most of the world, like Kimchi says, cares about what it means to love God, even if different people might understand it slightly differently. Maharat as an institution started out small. But the story of Avraham teaches us that it doesn't take many people necessarily to make a difference. Sometimes it only takes one. Avraham was alone on the mountain during the Akedah. But because people told his story, he became an example of faith to the entire world. Maharat as an institution started out small. But the story of Avraham teaches us that you don't necessarily need a lot of people in order to make a difference. Sometimes you only need one. Avraham was alone with Yitzchak on the mountain. But because people told his story, he became an example of faith to the world. Now Maharat is growing and beginning to send an abundance of students out into the world. The Torah that I have learned here, as I have experienced it, is one of deep and abundant love for God and for humanity. This Torah matters to everyone, not just to Jews, but to most of the world. Thank you.